Hello, grade 12s. Welcome back to the channel, Science Therapy, hosted by the one and only science therapist, Uabutiwa Sos Ugobela Wemets. And without any further ado, let's look at these questions that we have here. Okay, so still on optimization calculus, we have question 9. It says a farmer has a piece of land in the shape of a right angle triangle, OMN, as shown in the figure below. He allocates a rectangular piece of land, PTOR, to his daughter, giving her the freedom to choose P anywhere along the boundary MN. So P can be anywhere along the boundary MN, which obviously would shape this rectangular shape differently. And then let OM be equal to A, ON be equal to B, and PXY be any point on MN. Then 9.1 says determine the equation of MN in terms of A and B. Now looking at MN, we can see that that is a straight line. And then in order for us to figure out the equation of a straight line, we know that we only need to find the gradient and as well as the y-intercept, right? But then looking at the straight line here, we can see that there is a point here that intersects with the y-axis, which is obviously the y-intercept. And then it is indicated by the y-coordinate B. So that means at this point, we only need to find what is the gradient. So if we are to calculate our gradient, we know that the formula is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Now, do not be intimidated by the fact that you don't have the coordinate for A and B. The way in which you solve mathematical question is the same, whether you have the numbers or you have only the variables. So you still follow the same procedure. And by the way, they said in terms of A and B, so which indicates that you must not look for the values of A and B. You should just substitute A and B as it is. Then, if we are saying this is the first coordinate and these ones are the second coordinate, then that means here we have our x1 and y1, and then here we have our x2 and y2. So that means this is how we would have it. We would have b minus 0 over 0 minus a, right? Which would have to give us positive b, but here negative a, so this would be negative b over a. Right, so our gradient would be represented by negative b over a. Now, to find the equation or to determine the equation, it's y mx plus c. And then in the position of m, the gradient, we just replace with negative b over a. Then we put x there. And then the c here, we know is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is b. And then voila, that's how we have it in the form of y is equals to mx plus c. Right. So that determines our equation for MN. That's how we were supposed to calculate that. Okay, so now let's proceed. We have 9.2. It says prove that the daughter's land will have a maximum area if she chooses P at the midpoint of MN. Right, so they're saying we must prove that the maximum area will occur if only she chooses P at the midpoint of MN. So the first thing that I would do with this one is to first calculate the coordinates of P using the midpoint formula. So that's x1 plus x2 over 2, and then y1 plus y2 over 2, right? So we want to find the coordinates of P if it is the midpoint of MN. So if we are still taking this as the first coordinate and those ones as the second coordinate, that means we have A plus 0 over 2, and then followed by 0 plus b over 2. Then obviously the coordinates here would be a over 2 and then b over 2. Now, when we read, they say prove that the daughter's land will have a maximum area. Now, we know that in optimization calculus, once they mention minimum or maximum area, then this will lead us to the first derivative. But this would have to be the first derivative of the area. So a prime x, and then we'd have to equate it to 0 because the maximum or the minimum area would occur when our first derivative is equal to 0. So what are we trying to do now? We are trying to check if we calculate the coordinates of x and y using this concept here of maximum area, or this concept of equating the first derivative to 0. We are trying to prove if we're still going to find the same coordinates a over b. And if we do find the same coordinates, remember here we are trying to find the maximum area. So the coordinates that we will find are the coordinates that will give us the maximum area. So now if we find exactly the same coordinates using this concept here, that means it is true that the maximum area will occur if the daughter chooses P at the midpoint of Mn, right? So I hope it makes sense. Now, this is what we have. Remember, we haven't figured out the area equation, right? So we still need to figure that out. Now, to figure that out, we can say, let's now write the coordinates of P in respect to this line Mn. So in respect to line Mn, the coordinates of P would have to be x is 2, the y value that we got for the equation Mn. Remember, P here is a collinear point to line Mn, right? So that means the y value would have to be indicated by the equation of the line Mn, which we did find it's negative b over a and then x plus b, right? So these are the coordinates of P in respect to this line. So, but then what does that mean in respect to the area PTOR, or in respect to the rectangle PTOR? This means that the length here is x, because remember the coordinate x here is representing the distance from the origin all the way to point P, right? So this is x and that is x, like that. And then the y, or this line here, the breadth would have to indicate would have to be indicated by y, because the y represents the distance all the way vertically from the origin all the way to point P. So this would have to be indicated by negative b over a and then x plus b, right? So I hope it makes sense. So the length and the breadth, we find it from the coordinates of P in respect to the line Mn. Okay, so now this would be the area in terms of x has to be length times breadth. Since we know it's a rectangle, it's length times breadth. Our length is x, but then our breadth is this whole expression here, negative b over a, x plus b, right? Then that means our area in terms of x will now have to be, if we multiply here, that's negative b over a, x squared, and then if we multiply there, that's plus bx, right? But then remember, we want to apply this concept here, maximum area. So we have to say area prime x is equals to what? If we multiply this, we end up with negative 2b over a and then x, right? So we are deriving, we take this multiplied by the whole coefficient and then subtract 1. And then from here, we know that if we are given x with an exponent of 1, then the derivative is the coefficient. So that's b there. But we know that a prime x must be equal to 0 in order for us to have a maximum area. So for max area. So therefore we take this expression, the derivative expression, then we equate it to 0. So excuse me. Then that's supposed to be negative 2bx over a plus b is equals to 0. Now at this point, we can take the b over to that side. That's negative 2bx over a, and then is equals to negative b, right? Now to get rid of that b, we can just multiply both sides by negative 1 over b. Then also here multiply by negative 1 over b, right? Then at this point, we do understand that this b here will cancel out with that b, and then this b cancel out with that b, right? So the negative and the negative obviously gives us a positive. So we are left with 2x over a, is equals to the negative, and the negative is positive 1. And then we can cross multiply the a, so we end up with 2x is equals to a. But then remember, we are looking for the x coordinate of p, so we divide by 2 both sides, and then our x, so let's come here, our x will be equals to a over b, which from here we can see that it corresponds to this, right? But then we are not done, right? Because we still need to prove exactly that the coordinates are the same, right? So if we find that our x is equals to a over b, according to this, if we have found x, we can substitute in here the x value to find the y value, right? Because remember, p is on the straight line mn, and then we already found the equation. We already found the equation to be y is equals to. So we already found the equation to be y is equals to negative b over ax plus b. So that means in the position of x, let's now substitute the a over b. That's y is equals to negative b over a, and then a over plus b. Now, obviously, the a and the a now will have to cancel. So we have the a and the a cancelling out there. And then we are only left with y is equals to negative b over 2 plus b, right? Now, considering that this can be written as negative 1 over 2b plus b, these are now like terms. So if you can say negative half plus 1, you will get positive half. So positive half can be expressed the same way as b over 2, because this is 1 over 2, right? So your y is equals to b over 2. And then which fits our coordinates p. Our coordinates p is a is over 2 is 2, b over 2, which is the same coordinates we would get if our p would be the midpoint of line mn. So now, because we've proven that the coordinates that we get if we make p the midpoint of mn, and also the coordinates that we get if we calculate the maximum area, or the coordinates whereby we'll have the maximum area for PTOR is the same, then that means it proves the claim that when p is the midpoint, that's where we'll get the maximum area from this plot, right? So that's how you were supposed to go about answering that question. So it was a pretty tough question, but then you only needed to understand what needed to be done. So with all that being said, guys, please press the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed the lesson and then you found it helpful. And if you've been watching the videos and haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. But most importantly, please share the link with your friends and classmates so that they may also find assistance. Remember, do not be selfish. We are winning SAT.